Welcome back to the Cluey Podcast, where we help conscious consumers like you get clueyed into the latest conscious tips, topics, and brands from impact-driven founders to experts and thought leaders on the topic at hand. I'm your host, Maryclaire Manard, founder and CEO of Cluey. Let's get clueyed in. Today's topic, when it comes to personal hygiene, have we been tricked into doing it wrong? To discuss this, our guest today is Vincent Cobb, founder of oral and body care company Akamai. Akamai is on a mission to help people break free from the mainstream personal care paradigm that promotes too many products, chemicals, and complexity at a high cost to our health, wallets, and environment. They believe less is more, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about on today's episode. Vincent, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, before we jump into the topic at hand, let's just learn a little bit more about you and what inspired you specifically to start Akamai and specifically to tackle, these segments of personal hygiene, oral care first, and then moving into, body care as well.
So I saw a glaring problem that happened from some of our own personal experiences with health and wellness, specifically within oral health, where the solutions that the modern personal care industry is promoting doesn't make sense on multiple levels. It's a $130 billion industry, sells us products that we don't need, routines that don't make sense, that don't actually really help support healthy teeth, mouth, hair, skin. So if we kind of stripped and peeled the whole thing back, like if an industry didn't exist, if no products existed, what are the products, the tools that we would need to have these healthy elements, skin, teeth, hair, body, and what are the routines that make sense? So I'm very pragmatic in my approach. So we started doing it for ourselves and our family. And then at a certain point, it made sense, like, okay, this makes sense to start a business to share what we've learned with others. And to lead and just show a different way of approaching this stuff that's not industry driven or kind of the norm. It's just a sensible way to look at it with fresh eyes.
So my first question for you then is, what is the most salient statistic that you could probably share with us and our listeners as to what the status quo mass-produced products that we are using currently for oral care, body care, et cetera, how is that impacting our health as humans?
I have no idea what the statistic would be, and here's why. How do you assess the chemical body burden of a largely unregulated industry where we've got tens of thousands of chemicals that are being used? I think New York Times wrote an article this past week, somebody sent to me about even now, finally, some light is getting shed on, quote unquote, naturally derived and what that means. We've been educating people about this for a while. It's like, for naturally derived, you still have to, coconut oil, you take a coconut and you squeeze it and you get oil out of it. That's natural, right? Naturally derived, I like to frame it like you have a coconut, you have a lab and chemicals and a lot of processing, and then you end up with an isolate outside of it, which is a chemical compound that is divorced from the original thing. So is that natural? In my book, no, that doesn't seem to be natural. Our bodies, I believe, don't respond, and many people who don't respond well to that. That's why we see systemic inflammation and other stuff. So to try to peg a statistic on that, I mean, who knows the general sense? And I think if once we become aware of this stuff, our gut, I'm very data driven too. I look at numbers, but then at a certain point, what's your gut telling you, and what's your instinct telling you? It's like there's something off here, and so I mean, there are data points all over the place. If somebody just starts searching on this a little bit, to me, it just doesn't make sense, especially when we consider our skin is our largest organ, and what you put on your skin gets absorbed in. There's some barriers because of fat and things like that, but it's a highly absorbable, thing. And our submucosal lining, the inside of our mouths, the mucosal linings absorb even more readily. In fact, the digestion process starts inside of your mouth. So when you're putting something in your mouth, it's going straight into your bloodstream, which is why the stakes are high for oral health, to make sure you have a healthy mouth, and why the stakes are high with what you are putting in your mouth, because what you're putting in your mouth isn't even getting filtered through a little bit of filtering that might be happening in your skin, which is not a lot either.
And what would be an example of an ingredient in most oral care products, like most toothpaste, for example, that I could buy at a Walgreens or CVS or any drugstore around the country, what are some of the most common ingredients that you think, because of that high rate of absorption that
Yeah.
starts that process, what are some ingredients that like should totally freak people out that
Yeah,
exist in their toothpaste?
there are ones you hear, like some of the surfactants, or I think that's how you pronounce it. I always read it, I don't say it. But things like sodium lauryl sulfite or any of these kind of soap-based things, there's some that are worse than others. But you hear lots of things about that. And I used to, I remember I used to get canker sores in my mouth, and I don't get those kinds of things anymore unless my immune system's kind of weakened. I feel like I'm like, might be coming out of the cold. That's when quite often my body responds where there's like something off orally. But that's more of like a general immune system drop. But sodium lauryl sulfite, sulfate, we have a blog that gets into like some of the, it's called the not so good ingredients found in natural toothpaste, because there are the common ones. Triclosan is another one. I mean, still, I think one of the Colgate products is still using antibacterial triclosan in the toothpaste. It's getting phased out, but I think it's still around.
Oh, wow,
So
interesting.
imagine
So
what
like
that's doing.
something basically they use on a surface cleaner, you're saying is in
Yeah,
your
so
mouth.
they're harsh detergents, and again, it's like super sensitive. So I don't know, I don't have the specific ingredients, but that's one. Glycerin coats your teeth, which puts a slippery coating on your teeth, which reduces the remineralization process. Our teeth can remineralize. Our bodies have the ability, under the right condition, to remineralize naturally. They're living, they have roots. Saliva comes in and washes them with minerals. It's if it gets back into a balanced state, teeth can remineralize. But when you mess with it and don't have proper nutrients, your acidity level may be too high. All of a sudden, you can just kind of leach those minerals out, or like things like glycerin coat the teeth and prevent saliva from getting in, and bacteria grows on it. So it's kind of a shit show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think we were chatting about this earlier when we were having a conversation. I can't remember exactly where it was that I heard this, but I have a feeling it was from my high school biology class way back in the day. And my high school biology teacher mentioned, humans didn't used to bathe twice a day. It was actually only until the commercialization of the soap industry that became a normal thing. Like I guess around maybe somewhere between the 1920s through the 1940s, that was actually normalized our current hygiene practices, and that seems to be kind of what you're saying in a way towards oral care, but also body care more generally, to go back to basics.
Yeah, and if we look at like the body care, so sweat doesn't stink. Bacteria that grows on your body can stink, right? So as we say, hit the stinky parts, crotch, ass, toes, whatever, armpit. But there's a couple spots. There's no reason to ever wash off. Sweat also just washes off your body. So it's like rinse more, soap less is another thing that we say. And your body's skin is this delicate, it's also, I've heard before, it's the first part of our immune system too. So getting it back to what it normally does, it excretes some oil, which is important as a barrier. So it's this cycle of like soaping, washing off the oil, putting lotion back on. It's just, again, it's like pro industry. It's not pro common sense, and it's not needed for most people. If you have dry skin because of whatever, as you get older, people's skin might get drier in certain areas, then you put oil back on. And our skin fuel is designed to be very closely matching our body's natural sebum. And then it can go in your hair. It can go after, post shaving, just wherever your body might not have produced enough natural oil, put back some of the, natural-ish oil as ours is. I mean, it's not exactly sebum, of course, but it's very close as we could get it.
Yeah.
And then sorry, another thing is we believe, if you actually look into the really good current, research in the science around botanicals, there's a lot of powerful stuff that they contain. And I can mention a site, Green Med Info, has a lot of peer-reviewed studies that gets into the very powerful powers of these natural things that can basically feed our system in a very healthy way. So I think, part of the things like in our skin fuel, it has certain ingredients that help, as we say, feed your skin. So if you're putting it on, why not have something that actually is transdermally doing great benefit as opposed to potentially transdermally doing harm.
Right. Interesting. And, I'm curious, like, tell me what some, physicians or medical professionals have said to you in regards to their feedback on your products, whether it's, medical professionals in the oral health space or in,
Sure.
The dermatology space. What are some like, components to how you have vetted the efficacy and the positive impact on people's health through working with, medical professionals to get Akamai up to snuff and up to standards?
Sure. I mean, a lot of what we did is we go back and research the ingredients themselves and look at the scientific studies behind the ingredients, and then decide to include those in the thing that we put together, because each of them have been shown through studies to have a benefit for whatever the intended purpose is. So I'd say, I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and I was fortunate enough. My wife we found a holistic dentist here. So a holistic or a biological dentist, the way they look at oral health is like whole body. He was the one that turned us on to fulvic acid, as he said, part of his oral routine. And I had to ask him a bit more. I'm like, well, what do you suggest for oral routine? And when he realized that I was really trying to inquire, I didn't just want the surface level, he said, okay, look, teeth are living. They have roots, they need minerals. So fulvic acid is something that I recommend all my, patients, clients take, because we're deficient of minerals because of our soil has been depleted through 100+ years of farming the soil and stripping the nutrients out. So there was a study from, I think it was Scientific American, or an article, where they mentioned the amount of vitamin A in a carrot, like, today, or the study was from like the 50s or something. But anyway, the amount of nutrients in even that organic carrot you're eating now, unless it's like biodynamically grown in super rich soil, the vitamin content, mineral content is getting less and less and less. So you have to supplement with some of these things. I'm not pro supplement, but we have to in certain areas. So anyway, that, I don't know if that's getting to the efficacy, but as I asked him, because a lot of dentists look at this, because toothpaste in general have been seen purely as a cosmetic thing. So Harvard trained, former head of the IAOMT, which is one of the largest dentist organizations for biological dentists, testified in front of Congress to help get mercury out of fillings. He said, don't use a toothpaste. I said, why? He's like, they don't do anything. I'm like, well, what if they did? And he said, well, okay, possibly. I'm like, what if I included some of the things, these things, and I just told him my theory or thesis, and he's like, yeah, you could have something. So kind of, I mean, the other person who's a dentist there now, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but she went to Harvard also, and she, looked at what we did, and there's some quote in our site about, it kind of has everything that you'd want, from the pH balance to the abrasiveness. I mean, we put a hell of a lot of time and research, and I mean, it took us 4 years to develop our tooth powder. Our products are like anything that's simple. It seems simple, but to get to simple is a lot of work and attention and refinement, to have it work on all cylinders. So,
right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's fascinating. And, for what we do here at Cluey, we are always a big proponent of promoting the message that it's all about progress over perfection, and how you choose to be a conscious consumer. And for some people, they may know that there are certain benefits to doing things a certain way versus the way that they're currently doing them, but they may still say, you know what, I don't care. I can't move away from my current, practices and regime, and, my regimens.
Yeah.
And I actually happened to be my one sticking thing that I was like, well, I'm probably not going to change this one thing about my consumer behavior, was actually my oral care regimen. I tried Akamai's products, obviously, ahead of this podcast, and with, candidly thinking that I would go back to my previous oral care regimen after trying it, just so I could obviously legitimately say that I had the opportunity to try it, but I'm not planning on going back. My teeth feel great. Like, my concerns about it not like feeling clean enough or smelling good enough or all these things, like, just weren't necessarily the case. So I think it kind of turned me into being a believer, and like reading all of the research that y'all have on your site, regardless of it being an Akamai product or products elsewhere that people can find, this concept of like getting our bodies back to their natural support system, I think is really interesting. And the beauty of what you're doing too is that it also has a generally sustainable environmental component, which I think is great, because when you can marry things that are good for both the planet and your health, that's a win-win. Why do you think that's the case though? Why do you think that typically things that are better for the planet can sometimes often be better for our health as well?
Nature's the answer. I don't know, maybe there's kind of just truth and beauty in all of that. It's like when things work properly, they don't have to like shit on the planet at the same time. I always say, always thought it's like we can't consume our way out of this. It's like getting another thing, buying another thing, trying another brand. I mean, I think it's part of our innate part of being human that we want to constantly find a new thing and try a new thing. And sometimes that's not necessarily healthy on any aspect, either individually or societally. What's the hole you're trying to fill? Maybe it's just, if I get another thing, or if I buy this thing, it'll make me feel better, it'll look better, or I'll seem cool. It's like, just drop it all, man, because it's not getting to the essence of what's real.
And have you found that to be a difficult message to promote as a business owner, that you're essentially running a business that says buy less?
No, I know. I mean, as we ran the models of it and look at it, it's like everybody can win except the industry doesn't win. So I believe the industry could be shrunk from about 130. I mean, this number, $130 billion too. I found the statistic as probably bigger. I can't remember where I found it years ago. It's hard to find. How do you assess the personal care market, the entire, market in the United States? Who knows? But it was a data point. I know that's real. I believe that's actually low from when I was looking at these, but it could probably be a 10 to, $13 billion industry, and everybody be healthy, and except the industry would be a lot smaller.
Vincent, it's been awesome really hearing from you about your business, the theories and the inspirations that came together to bring Akamai to life. And I've really enjoyed the products personally. But I would love to end our podcast today with our 2 glimmer of hope questions that we always ask every person on the podcast. The first glimmer of hope question is, what is a new innovation happening right now that you've recently learned about, whether it's in your particular niche or somewhere else in the world of impact, that you are jazzed about right now?
Yeah, I'd say kind of what's old is new. I think it's that people are rediscovering the importance and the value of what I'd call mind training, whatever you want to call it, meditation, this practice of if we train this thing, we're going to be a heck of a lot healthier as an individual, and cleaning up past trauma through doing, therapy. And there's a lot of very, very good, highly effective therapies and modalities that are now becoming accessible to everybody. The trick is we need to do it, but it's here now as a society. I believe truly that could transform both us as individuals and us as society. And so I think
I love it. Very holistic, very in line with the holistic viewpoint that you have there. And then the second glimmer of hope question, I know we just said, I know you're just saying to buy less, but we do always want to take the opportunity to allow our guests to highlight some other brands, impact-focused brands that they really love, and they love, whether it's their mission or their purpose or even just their products. And it can't be the brand, can't be your own brand, of course. So can you rapid fire name 3 brands, impact-focused brands that you absolutely love?
Yes. Waking Up app by Sam Harris. I think he's one of the best modern teachers, and it's something you can buy. Okay, I'll grab it since it's here. This book should be called Breathe, because every time I say it's breath, but breathe. I think this is a thing that there's breath is really, really important. And I'd say Audible, actually. Wait, let me turn this off. Audible, and the reason why I say that is because we're the first generation where we have access to all of this profound information at our fingertips, and some of the best. I mean, for the cost of like $14 or $12, you can get an audiobook and listen to the author speak to you in their words and convey their wisdom to you. I mean, so it's Audible within the book of like truly outstanding health and wellness tools. And they say it's like you're a what is it? You're an amalgamation of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Quite often, we can't, for multiple reasons, spend time with great thinkers and wise people and things like that. But in the form of audiobooks, which, you can. So Audible.
Love it. Love it. No, three really great recommendations there. So thank you so much. And Vincent, thank you for coming on our podcast to get our followers clueyed in on the best way to approach personal care and hygiene.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Of course. And thanks to all of our listeners who tuned in for this episode of the Cluey Podcast. As a disclaimer, Cluey does have an affiliate relationship with Akamai. We only enter into affiliate relationships with brands who score a B- or higher on both their people impact and planet impacts on our rating system. Our ratings are aggregated from best-in-class third-party data, so Cluey cannot impact the ratings of these brands ourselves. If you'd like to learn more about Cluey, our top-rated brands, our ratings, and how we make money, you can find it all at clueyconsumer.com/about us. Remember to come back next time to get clueyed in to the latest in the world of conscious consumerism.